Good morning, good day, good evening, good night. Wherever and whenever you're listening to this, welcome to the Bitaxe Townhall. Today we're writing the Townhall number 54. I'm Want Clue, your host, and I'm really happy to be here. With me on stage today, again, is Scott. Hey Scott, how you doing?
Hey, Clue. I'm doing great. It's good to be here. Excited for another fantastic town hall.
As always, we need some lines that we can read off so it just sounds a little bit more robotic, I guess.
Oh yeah, like we have like a specific intro for each of us.
Oh, that would be insane. Anyway, before we do start
We need
into
theme music. That's what we need is theme music. Oh
we
man,
we
like a
do we do have theme music. I do record all of these things here in the town halls and everything else with OBS, and I do have some sort of theme music and intro music and everything else. But I, yeah, making sure the audio levels and everything else is good is some sort of a weird thing. I need to tweak that, and maybe I can do that in the future. But then, like, the theme music is only on the recording, not in the town hall. So it's not epic for the audience, but epic for the people listening to this later on, which is meh.
yeah. We need like maybe theme music for the recording, but then special super rad theme music for just the audience, right? For the badasses, the legends who actually join us and listen to it live.
Yeah, that would be rad. Like Discord, instead of forcing
Yeah, just
people
a
to
couple
use
little small
verification,
production
give us
issue. We'll
some
figure it
actual
out.
features that we want.
So yeah, thanks, Animal. When in early March 2026, when Discord implements a global team by default policy, and we can't do this anymore, what are we going to move to? How are we going to do this? What's the cool way to do this that's not under Discord's privacy violating
So
grip?
there's a catch to it. This verification that Discord is implementing, as far as I do know, is only for servers who do have content above the age of 18 and some other things, some teenage restricted content thingies, whatever. I mean, why would you think about it joining a porn Discord? What the fuck? Anyway, um,
I heard, and I think this is what Animal's thing says is that okay, so you straight up cannot join adult servers. That's not a problem for us. This
yeah.
isn't, a like adult only server. But I think what they're saying, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think what they're saying is that even if you're on like an all ages server like this, you still cannot join video and voice chat stuff if you're a teen.
Okay, so there is a web page. Let me quickly Google that. It's called, is it Discord Less? Maybe. Yeah, discordless.com. Escape Discord. It's a
Escape
website that
Discord.
shows you all the available competition for Discord. One of them is obviously Matrix, but Matrix does have its own issue. It's not a software in particular, it's a protocol. So Matrix is a little bit weird. Then there are other things. One of the things that I think is the most or the best one that we could switch to instantly would be Root. But there are other ones like
Wait,
Stowed.
what's it called?
Root, like your root password.
Root. Oh,
Root, yeah.
that sounds powerful. And
It's quite interesting. The page of that is rootapp.com. And if you take a look on it,
okay.
it basically looks like a Discord clone, one to one. But it was designed for gamers to create chat rooms and everything else and create raids whatsoever for gaming. But it features a ton of things that we also could utilize, like voice chats, stages, video chats, etc. You have like a role system, but again, this is then a proprietary software that you're using, such as Discord, and we do rely on a US based company. Well, there are a couple of caveats to that. Another option for us would be to switch off to something that is a little bit more decentralized, such as Stowed, which builds builds a more or less what's it called? Like decentralized network, something like that. Never heard about this term, but it exists. And
Yeah,
obviously,
we were looking a little bit at Stoat. It seemed pretty cool. I think I kind of like Flotilla. It's Noster based. Um, I feel like a lot of these alternative apps obviously have a long way to go to be as good as Discord was. Um, I don't know. I kind of like Flotilla. I think it's a neat idea. The developer is very well. He's a cool guy. I met him, and he seems very motivated. Ben was and I and you were screwing around on a test version of the server, and Ben like added some features like search and some like code parsing issues, and like they got merged and deployed like right away. So that's kind of cool. Obviously, it's not like today. I think we could switch over, but it does seem promising.
yeah, well, um, Stoat and apps like Flotilla, I, they feel still a little bit buggy, so we couldn't move over to that. And especially with this Discord server, we do have over 13,000 people. Well, a couple of them are bots, and a good
Couple,
chunk of
yeah.
them are also probably scammers. And what else? Um, it's kind of hard to move this kind of amount of people over to a new platform, but I guess there is no better time than now doing that and starting to explore what kind of possibilities we do have, because it's kind of unfortunate that we do have these new restrictions. And yeah, especially if there is like voice isolation and like you need verification in order to join a voice chat. Or imagine in 2 weeks we can no longer do town halls because Discord doesn't allow us. Well, um, that's kind of bad. So we need to think about that. And the only two options that I think are more or less prominent and actually we could use are either root or stowed. There are some other ones out there as well, like Spacebar, Discourse C, um, yeah, a couple other ones that are a little bit tough. Rocket Chat, for example, is one option that we could use, but the problem with that is we need to self-host it on our own. So what if one of us just goes crazy and now the server's gone? That's stupid.
Yeah, that's a very real risk. Like self-hosting, you get a lot of power and freedom, but then we've actually had it on OSMU. We've had a an admin kind of go crazy, and that could have been bad if that person was running the whole server.
Hmm.
Um, you know, but if so, it sounds like for sure next month we're going to have a problem with these town halls, right? So maybe there's another platform that we can switch to for just doing these town halls, like not on Discord. We can switch to next month and we can keep this thing going, right? Maybe we have to post a link to somewhere else for people to join the town hall. I think as far as the chat like forum feature of OSMU, we have some more time. We should definitely migrate, like, but it's not quite as urgent. And so I think we can look into these different services and find one that's going to be sustainable for us in the long run.
Yeah, I'm just quickly gonna copy and paste the root app into the chat. Let me see. Here we go. I mean, it straight up looks like a Discord clone, but it's kind of doing a good thing. I was playing around with it a little bit, and well, one of the biggest problems is on this Discord server that we do have right now here, we have a ton of bots who are making sure to track like messages, and if people are sending like scam, they get deleted. We have moderators that also do scans. We have other bots on this server that do certain other tasks like notifying people if something new is happening, etc., etc. That is one of the biggest problems, that we either need to develop our own notification systems or sanitizing bots, or we need to wait. So, I mean, the good thing is
We should
we are
we should
probably not
actually
alone. Like other communities have the same issue. They feel kind of,
right.
yeah, rejected by Discord, and now more and more people are looking into other ones, other possibilities. And I think Root and Stowed are the most promising ones.
For he doesn't join the town halls, but for everyone who's listening, we have a fantastic moderator. I just want to give a shout out to STS Miner. He's been doing a ton of work behind the scenes to like keep the the spammers, scammers, and bots out of here. Like the guy works tirelessly to make everyone's life on OSMU better. So shout out to him. And yeah, we should definitely get his input on whatever we're moving to, because uh, this would be a much less pleasant place to be if it weren't for all of his hard work.
Yeah, definitely. SDS Miner is doing a fantastic job. So people need to know, like, we have moderators that are doing really great stuff out there, and making sure that everything is polite. I mean, politics are always swapping into or swamping into these kind of chats everywhere. I mean, take a look on Bitcoin Talk. Back in the days, I do remember having chats on Bitcoin Talk was nice, was easy. You just had technical chats, and these days it's all over the place. It's politics. People are swearing. People are posting claims and other shit, and like all these shitcoin projects get promoted there as well. It's hella disgusting. And the same happens
It
here. I
is.
mean, it's in the nature of the people. People come, people have opinions and think they're correct, and everybody else needs to listen to them. Well, it's kind of weird. I mean, I do get it. Some people might say, well, even the OSMU dudes, they do have the opinion that they're the greatest one and they are the only ones that do know better. But, well, in the end of the day, things only exist if we have conversations, and nobody is always right. Neither are we. We have so many issues. Everybody of us does have. So, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right. That's
Anyway,
right. I
but
mean,
before we do proceed any further with any more topics, I'd like to point out that these town halls they are recorded, so they get later on uploaded to all sorts of podcast platforms, etc. But one of the important things is these town halls are for you, the audience, and everybody else who's coming in and listening. And I'm really glad that so many of you joined in here today. I do see a couple of known faces that is really lovely, and a couple of new ones. So I really do appreciate that. For everybody who's in here really new and you're just checking out what's going on here, well, these town halls are for you. You can come in here, you can raise your hand, can come up on stage and just have a chat. Or if you don't want to do that, just use the town hall text chat and ask questions in there if you do have any. All right. Now, with this advertisement out of the way, let's proceed.
well, what are we going to talk about today? Should we talk about open source Bitcoin mining?
Oh, I never heard about that. The heck?
I don't know. It could
That
never
sounds
work.
crazy. Like, are you sure you want to do
Yeah.
that?
All right. All right. Yeah. Yeah. I think I do. Like, we've never really covered it before. So let's get into it.
All right. Lately I was a little bit busy being on GitHub, and I found some weird repository called ESP Miner. And it appears to be that yesterday there was a new release called v2.13.0. Kind of weird. A couple of new devices have been added, changes to the backend, ton of fixes and bug fixes. Kind of fantastic. And out of the box, native TLS support for these devices called Bitaxe. Kind of rad.
Ooh. Ooh. TLS support. Why might someone want that?
So one of the bad things that could happen to you is either your neighbor grandma is watching on you with their magnifying glasses, or someone else is just spoofing your Wi-Fi and is trying to get all of your credentials. But we're not talking about these kind of weirdos. What we want to talk about is, what if you go to the internet and you Google something, you search on the web, on the World Wide Web something, what's happening with this request? Where has this data been sent? Well, you have someone who's called an ISP, a internet service provider, who's giving you access to the internet. Technically, if you do not encrypt your data, they can plain text read whatever you're searching for. So if you do search for any naughty pictures, or if you want to know what is the latest and greatest open source Bitcoin miner, then they might know it if you use HTTP. And the thing is, some of these internet service providers, they don't like it if their internet service lines are being used for Bitcoin mining. Well, Bitcoin mining does rely on a protocol called Stratum, and the Stratum v1 is basically in plain text. It does not encrypt any of the data, which in itself is an issue. So how could we fix that? Some people might say, well, we need to improve, or we need to create a new protocol called Stratum v2. It does fix a couple of things. It takes a couple of other things into different directions. But if we are only concerned about the encryption and the privacy of these mining devices and the people who do run them, the only thing we actually need to do is we need to take the packages that we are sending over to so-called pools and encrypt them, so that the ISP only knows I'm talking to address XYZ, but he doesn't know what exactly I'm sending over. Maybe I'm just browsing on the web page that this pool does have, or I'm actually sending over some data. Well, the ISP doesn't know. And that's the whole point about TLS. TLS makes sure to encrypt your data that you do send out when you're using your mining device. And some people, some devices do have that, some don't. And with the version 2.13.0, we made sure that TLS and the encryption of the data that you're sending over to the pool is in XOS. So if you want to use, for example, Public Pool or Atlas Pool or any other solo mining pools that are out there globally that do support this, you can just enable that in your settings, go to the pool page, expand the advanced features, click on TLS enabled, then select the system certificate, and just put in the port and the number or name or IP address of the pool that does support TLS. Fun fact, CK Pool doesn't support that. A ton of other pools that are out there also don't support that. So TLS is not widely adopted.
It is kind of weird because, obviously Stratum v1 was invented a long time ago. But we've always had the option to do Stratum v1 over TLS SSL, right? It has always existed. I think there was kind of this sort of chicken and the egg problem preventing people from actually using it. The problem was none of the miner firmware supported it because none of the pools supported it. And none of the pools supported it because none of the miner firmware supported it, right? It was like people were stuck. There was only a couple people making mining firmware, and there was only a couple people making pool software. And so it just wasn't moving forward at all. And I think it's kind of ridiculous, right? Because, it's not like super easy to do, but it's also not super hard to just do Stratum v1 over TLS.
Well, how long
so
did it
it's
take
pretty cool
Public
that
Pool to implement that?
with
1
this
hour?
Bitaxe. Well, Ben's a gigabrain, so I don't know if that counts, but
Yeah, okay.
yeah, right. It's not that hard. You just need like someone to have the will to change the pools and the mining firmware. And that's what's so cool about OSMU, right? It's like, all right, here we all are. We can do this. We have the agency to change the pool software because it's open source. We have the agency to change the mining firmware because it's open source. So let's just do it. There's been the same struggle, I think, with Stratum v2 adoption too, is that like, all right, the mining firmware, like Bitmain's firmware doesn't support it. That's what 80% of the miners by hash rate use. So like, it's not going forward at all. So yeah, this is a pretty cool way to do it. I think, it's actually not as important for solo miners, right? Because no one's going to like hijack your hash rate for a solo miner. That wouldn't be worth the effort. But I think we can do it anyways as a show of the power of doing this open source. Is like, yeah, we can just do these things. We can break the meta, as Hexfox is saying. So this is really cool. I think everyone should give it a try. If you're using Atlas Pool, if you're using Public Pool, you can just flip this on and start doing it right away. It should be totally transparent. Obviously, if you run into any problems, let us know. We can get them fixed soon, hopefully. But yeah, this is how we move things forward, provide a better service for people, and you know, influence Bitcoin mining for the better.
Well, I think that is actually needed. I mean, in the end of the day, Bitcoin and all of the devices and the ecosystem all around it gets actually developed, updated, and improved by the people who are using it. So, if more and more people do actually care about that, and I do think with the home mining scene that is slowly establishing, we do see that people do care about privacy, people do care about what is happening, and well, for some out there, it doesn't really matter because they do run their own pool at home, which is easily possible, or they just don't care and use a pool that is hosted by someone else, but then they want to claim at least the privacy part. And with the high amount of people coming into that and hopefully having the urge to at least protect a little bit, it will eventually come in and more people want to know about this. I think one good thing that we could do is just go out there. I don't know if Brain software, for example, does support TLS, but if they don't, we can just maybe we need like a couple of hundred people to claim Brains on X and other social media platforms and just tell them, hey, use TLS, use shit.
Yeah, I don't know if Brain supports TLS, but they did add support for Stratum v2, sort of.
Mm.
Um, and it was kind of interesting. I think that they were having problems because Brain's firmware, like a lot of other third-party firmware for Bitmain machines, they make their money by having your miner work a small portion of the time for a dev fee. So it's kind of like some of your hash rate goes to their pool and they collect that as a dev fee. But they were having problems because because when it was over Stratum v1, people who knew how this stuff works could actually just hijack that hash rate going to the dev fee server for themselves, right? And effectively not pay a dev fee. So I think a lot of the motivation for them to add that dev fee mining to happen over an encrypted communication was so that people couldn't steal their dev fee. So that's a little bit weird. I think dev fees are kind of whack, but it got added. It got added. I don't know if they support TLS. I think they just support Stratum v2, which has encryption, but it's not at the sort of TCP protocol level. But yeah, TLS is just like a really straightforward way to do it. Obviously, the firmware and the pool needs to support it, like both the server and the client. But yeah, we can just do things here. So give it a try. I mean, we had I don't know, it was probably over the course of the last, I don't know, maybe almost 10 years, but now like all websites by default are HTTPS, which is essentially HTTP over SSL, right? And it used to be nothing was like that, and now everything is like that. In fact, your browser will give you a warning if you're not going to an HTTPS site, which is great. That's great for privacy. That's great for security. And we just need to normalize this in mining, like it was done for HTTP.
Well, I think in some cases it doesn't really matter. I mean, as I just said, some of the services you might host them at home on your own infrastructure that you do have, such as your own node and your own pool that you're running. So in that particular case, it doesn't really matter. But indeed, the market and everything else has shifted over the time. And as you said, if you try to visit a web page that is not HTTPS, then your browser does give you a warning. So why don't we care about the system that is actually making sure to hash against the SHA-256 algorithm, the protocol that we're trying to use to solve a ton of issues? So yeah, it's kind of counterintuitive. But to be fair, I think over the last decade, there was not really that much improvement or changes in mining at all. Like mining has been introduced, companies figured out how to trick a couple of things, how to gain more hash rate than others. Some implemented dev fees to make more money, but there was not really anything or any company that was going out there and making sure to protect the hardware and the thing that you're using. So, I mean, we do have this when it comes to nodes. Some node providers tell everybody they do the best for privacy. Some others claim other things. There are lots of things going on in that particular space. The same goes for wallets. Some have better security practices than others. Think about Tangem, where you could read out the private key during the creation of it, or the ledger with having the option to send over your private keys to a secure vault of their company. Yeah, well, I bet you trust them, hopefully. Totally. And then you have others who are going out there and being open source. And again, others who are doing completely different things. But in mining, we haven't really seen that, which is kind of odd.
It is kind of odd. It is kind of odd. I think like I was saying before, we just need to normalize this, right? It doesn't solve all the problems, that's for sure. And in a lot of cases it's not necessary. Like I don't need HTTPS to like protect my, cat picture downloads, right? That's not important. But the what is important is to just normalize it and use it for everything because you never know when and why it might be important. And you don't want to you don't want to find out when it's too late that it was important. So just uh, normalizing this in mining, I think, is a great way to go. Like just have it available. More pools will switch to it. Maybe some pools will actually require it. Um, and we can just get that to be the norm for Stratum V1. I think there isn't much downside to doing that.
I don't think so.
Ben's
either.
asking, can Magina do SSL right now? That I don't know. That's a really good question. It probably wouldn't be that hard to add if it's not already in there.
There's also currently of this topic an
But yeah, that's a
off-topic
good
question.
point. We should definitely have that in there.
Badger was asking if public pool is supporting BIP 110. I don't know if Ben is in chat and could answer that. I have no answers to that. Okay.
All right, there's his definitive answer.
Fuck no. Good.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of people with a lot of opinions on this topic, and I guess the cool thing here is that you can make your own decisions on this topic, right? I don't think it, we can all have our opinions on how it should work, but we don't need to prescribe them in the way that mining works, right? If you are a hardcore BIP 110 supporter, you can absolutely do that, right? You could do it with public pool if you want. Public pool, you can self-host it yourself and you can install knots and mine, supposedly spam-free blocks to your heart's content, right? That's what I think is really important. That is the power in making this decentralized, open source, self-hostable, right? Is that you can make your own decisions. You can do it how you want. This is how networks come to consensus, is that people who are actually doing things, economic nodes, miners, they can do it the way that they want to. Just like Ben is running public pool, the hosted version of public pool. So, he can provide that service how he wants to, and someone else can provide that service how they want to. That's where the freedom comes in. That's where the power comes in a decentralized network.
And that's the beauty about it. Like people can decide what they want to do. And sure, it's always this technical difficulty that some might have of like, well, I only understand how to install an app. I don't know how to change the code. Yes, but these days I think, especially for like minor changes and maybe supporting something like that or not, or doing a name change in the front end or anything else, there are AI systems out there that could probably help you with that. They should be capable probably of doing that. But even if not, like you have the option to do that instead of relying on services that you cannot even understand or try to, because nothing of them is open source.
Yeah, that's 100%. That's the power of open source, right? Is these are tools that you can use. You have the freedom to use to basically to do what you want. And I know there are people who argue it's like, oh, well, if what I want to do is, make it closed source, like I don't have that freedom. And I think that's the wrong way of thinking about it, right? The reason why we have a copyleft license on this stuff is so that everyone has the freedom to do what they want, right? You can't take this software and close source it and thereby strip the freedom away from your end users, right? Your end users need to have the same freedoms to do what they want that you had when you originally got the software.
Yeah, that's the thing about
So
it. Like changing things in one way or the other is totally fine. I mean, there are copies of ESP Miner for different projects, or some people didn't like the UI, so they created their own one. We have Xwell UI as an example. This is probably the best example. It even does have a member channel in this Discord server right here. So you have the freedom to do all of these things, but well, some people think their freedom is to just be a jerk and take what others created and claim it their own and do a closed source version of it. Well, not too long.
yeah, like that by doing that, by taking it and closed sourcing it, right, you are stripping the freedom from your users, right? And that's not what we want to advocate for. We want to advocate for the users having freedom. And so that's why we have a copyleft license.
I mean, there's
This
even
stuff.
this thing like we do have a subreddit, the Bitaxe subreddit, and even here on this Discord, some people come in here and they ask for mining particular altcoins or other things, or they want to do different things. And some even complain that certain features of XOS are not working to their liking because they're not using Bitcoin, but they're using some altcoins. And it's kind of funny to see that, especially like we do create that as a solely purpose Bitcoin miner. And all of the features who are getting added into that are solely built on that. So we do not really test this against anything else. But it's kind of funny to see that people do have the expectation that if we do develop something for Bitcoin, it should work on all of the other things as well, which is hilarious. Sometimes we do see the weight of complaints. We do not bow to them in that particular sense, but we do see them and we kind of adjust it in a way that it might work with altcoins as well. But we're not supporting that. So officially, there is nothing else than apart from Bitcoin what we are interested in, and that is the way of developing on it. I mean, currently from being active and working on that, we have a couple of people who are developing and moving XOS forward, but none of them is into any of that. And to be fair, I don't even think that any of us will. So if you want to do that or change it to any of the altcoins because it gives you higher odds of finding one of these altcoin blocks, or it just looks nicer to you, you have the freedom to do that. But then you need to create your own fork of it, which is your freedom to do, which you would not have if this wouldn't be a copyleft license.
That's such an important point, right? There's nowhere in the license that says you can't fork it and make, a shitcoin miner, right? That is your freedom to do that. But it's also important to remember that no one here works for you. Like absolutely no one in OSMU works for you, right? So we are not under any obligation to add your features. But the good news is that if you want something, you can just do it, right? Your only obligation is to release your changes also open source.
Yeah, that's the thing that
Yeah,
I think people need to understand. Like nobody at OSMU is working for anybody. Like we have lots of PRs. Basically, Mutatram and I are reviewing all of the PRs that are coming in there. And it takes time, and we do that at our goodwill because we work on that if we have free time. We don't get paid for that. None of us get paid for that. We have other brilliant minded people who did a ton of things. Like I do see E. Anderson in the chat who did fantastic things when it comes to the WebSockets and other things and Wi-Fi, what else? Hexfox doing other great things, but none of us gets paid for that. So it's an open source project and it lives off the community. And if people want to move things forward, they need to contribute. And they need to be patient for get reviewed. And yeah.
Yeah. I mean, there's this sort of this, there are gatekeepers for getting it merged into mainline ESP miner. And, the gatekeepers on that don't work for you, right? They're under no obligation to do whatever it is you want, right? This project is developed in, basically the image that the maintainers of ESP Miner want to see happen. And, they're all good people. And I'm sure if you have a reasonable PR, it will be considered. But there's no obligation to merge it, right? But the cool thing is that you have the absolute power to fork it and do it exactly how you want. That's a huge power. You could make, if you put your mind to it, you could make a new, more popular fork if you want. And I would invite people to do it. Like that is how this works. That's how it wins. So yeah, I mean, to be honest, this happens with Bitcoin Core and Bitcoin Knots quite a bit too, right? As people think that the developers, the maintainers of those projects, like work for them, and that just because there's even a majority of people want it, that they should have to do it. But that's not how it works. Bitcoin is an open network. There's support for multiple implementations of everything. In fact, that is a freedom that is specifically provided by an open network. And so, yeah, you can just do things. If you think you've got a better way of doing it and you're not getting any support from the project maintainers that you're trying to base it on, then, please, by all means, fork it, do it better. We could use more implementations of everything.
And it's kind of funny. It's like not everything is sailing smooth, to be fair here. Like with Adam and I, and even with Hexfox and other maintainers of the project, we do have quite some arguments about like, is this actually a good way of implementing that, or should we change things? Like we're particularly picky about what should go into the firmware for a good reason. And the reason for that is basically that these devices are being used by thousands of people out there. If we do wrong moves, or if we are too quick in the pace, which originally we have been, but back in the days there were like maybe 10,000 people using that, and they were understandable if we fucked up. But these days we understand there is some sort of responsibility, even though we do not work for any of the manufacturers who's out there and claiming they're the greatest and best manufacturer out there and people should only purchase from them. Well, they do whatever they want, but in the end of the day, we need to make sure that the software that we do provide is as reliable as possible. And for that, we have particularly a couple of security things that we try to obligate as good as possible into, and that's for like testing and making sure that things do ship in a certain way. But this does not prevent from fail. It does not prevent anything to happen, to go wrong. Like I basically do see this every single time. When we click on publish for a new version, it maybe takes like 10 minutes and I instantly see on Reddit people claiming they just updated and now their device is broken. Well, either they forgot to upload the correct firmware or they uploaded a wrong version. So yeah, there are always things going wrong. Most of the time, the issue is sitting in front of the computer. That being said, it could also be that we fucked up, but with all of the measurements that we put into that, having firmware testers, having lots of conversations, reducing the pace and how often we do release things, making sure we do review the code as good as possible to our understanding, well, I think it reduces the issue. None of us is perfect, and we ship multiple times shit code, but slowly we're improving on that, and I think the outcome of that is getting quite good. And as I said, it takes time, and we're doing that as our free will. So it actually also does take time.
I mean, you're doing a fantastic job. You said you're doing quite good. I would like uh, to push back on that. You're doing an absolutely fantastic job. This has become quite the big project. There's lots of moving pieces and lots to work on. And yeah, I mean, all that considering, doing an absolutely fantastic job. ESP Miner is amazing. I might be biased, but ESP Miner is really cool, and there's a lot of people using it. This has changed home mining already in a massive way, and I think for the better. So, you know, keep on doing a good job. Obviously, listen to people that have legitimate bug concerns, right? Because, like you said, there'll always be bugs. But then, there's an art to ignoring the noise, and as more people use this, there's going to be more and more noise. So, you know, I think there's like a saying. It's like don't sweat the petty things.
Yeah, well, I need to say, like, noise is not always bad. Like, most of the people that you do see, particularly in the Bitcoin space, they always do talk about noise and how frustrating that can be from time to time, and it sure can be. But what I do really like to elaborate here a little bit more is that even though the Reddit, the subreddit that we do have, is mostly filled with requests about help and how to fix things or how things are just broken and why their miner is now bursting into flames after the upgrade, it happened more than a dozen of times that I was reading quite often about issues or changes that people wish would be implemented, and then we do implement them. I mean, not all of us maintainers are making sure that we do read all of the communities that we do have out there, and some of the things will probably just go away and will never be read. But if you don't post things, if you don't share what you have on thoughts, you don't even need to be a programmer. You don't need to be a design expert or anything else. But let's say you have the idea about that we need kitty cats on the XOS front end. Well, if you elaborate that and it gets like positive response from the community on either of the platforms like X, Reddit, or elsewhere, then there's a high chance that this might be implemented, or someone is just opening in a PR because this dude or girl loves your way of saying things and thinks, yeah, that's a great feature. He just opens up a PR, and we do like that as well, so it gets implemented. But if you don't do that, it never will happen. So I'm just trying to encourage you here a little bit to be open about what you do think should be implemented into things. And that being said, it's also quite interesting to see how ESP Miner is changing over the course of the past 3 years. Especially 3 years aren't that much, but we are already slowing down so much in pace because ESP Miner these days is basically a fully fledged system. There are just so much things you can implement into that. And at some point, it might eventually stop because it's perfect. It's running. Don't change your running system.
Yeah, I think that's just a important point of like project maturity, right? Is it's it's doing its job, it's doing it well. People are relatively familiar with it and how to use it, and bug fixes become less and less. And you don't want to like get into this situation where you're just adding features because you're bored. Because that, well, it potentially introduces more bugs, but then it also kind of just complicates the whole thing. But yeah, I mean, like I said before, this project's come a long way. It's working really well. It's so much better than it was even a year ago. It's crazy.
So let's make a hard cut here and let's switch into a topic that I don't know if you have any insights into that, but
Sure.
E. Anderson is pointing out a good thing here. He said new mining chips are easier than ever to add. Well, that is sort of true, depending on the chip we're talking about. I love to always peek into the What's Miner chat that we do have, and there's this dude who was posting a picture that he got the KM 13 something or 19 something chip working. Is that correct? Did I read that correct?
Yeah. I've been talking with him off and on over the past year, and he is very interested in making a what's minor based Bitaxe, as well as getting a better understanding of how what's minor chips work. I know he supports a lot of what's minor machines out in the field, and yeah, he's particularly motivated to do that, which is awesome, right? I mean, this is a great thing, is that people can jump in and just start doing things. It sounds like he did make some progress using AI to reverse engineer um, the microBT what's minor chips, and yeah, he's built some hardware, some prototype hardware with what's minor chips on it, Bitaxe based. Um, he also made it's really cool. He made a version of the Addit board that supports what's minor boards, and I think the hardware's got some bugs currently, but he's using that to dig in and better understand this protocol. I think that's an awesome way to go. Like, the more of these systems that we can understand and create open source firmware for, the better. Uh, I agree that it's a little bit intimidating right now to add support for new chips to ESP Miner. Um, the project was architected around how Bitmain chips work. Um, but yeah, I don't think it's impossible. Sure, it could be easier. Uh, but,
The current
it
process
is
would be
also a bare
rather
metal
easy.
system. What's that?
I said the current process would be rather easy because Mutatram and I, we spent like, particular, he spent like a huge amount of time into making sure that we have a good view on how we could implement new chips. Like if we would add obviously another Bitmain chip, that would probably just take 1 to 2 hours if we have like all the necessary requirements such as the registers, etc. But even if we would add like other chips who does have a completely different initialization and everything else, making sure that we make it modular these days is easier than ever because we changed the code so much that we can do that.
That's awesome. Love to see it. And we're going to get a good opportunity to do that here pretty soon. The Bitaxe Bonanza, uh, I've got a new version of it design ready. I just need to order some
But it's
prototypes
still
once
RP
uh,
2350 based, right?
JLC PCB opens back up. Nope. Nope. It is based on the ESP32.
How did you manage the 9-bit issue?
So it has an RP2040 on it, but it's just a serial converter. So it has an
Gotcha.
ESP32 on there that's running that's running ESP miner. The catch here is that the ESP32 doesn't really have the ability to do 9-bit serial. So we need a converter in there, and that'll be the RP2040 on the Bitaxe Bonanza. But my hope is that the firmware for the RP2040 will be very simple code, right? It's basically just taking 8-bit serial and converting it to 9-bit serial in both directions. So that'll hopefully be a very simple firmware that can get created once, and fingers crossed can just be uh, it can be finished and not have to ever screw with that. One catch is that on this design, the RP2040 is also going to replace the fan controller. So we don't have to use the AMC 2101. I think that'll be a big win. I think that'll be easy enough for the RP2040 to do, and that won't be a big risk in that code base either.
No, not at all. I think that should be rather easy. I mean, in particular, we have so many configuration options these days, like making sure that a certain configuration of ESP miner does not utilize certain I2C lines or does communicate with different components is super easily edible.
Yeah, and I don't want to understate the importance of that and the difficulty of that. Like creating a essentially bare metal firmware that is that modular to support a whole wide range of peripherals is hard to do. So shout out to you guys for championing that and making that possible. I think that's going to be a big win for Bitaxe and the sort of versatility we have going forward in adopting new better ASIC chips. Hexfox is asking, how's the Naja going? Um, it's stalled. Bitmain has yet to release a machine with those chips in it, and that is what I need to figure out how to communicate with them. Because we understand how the protocol works for communicating with these chips, but what we don't understand is how a particular model chip needs to be initialized, and that's basically only in the firmware. Once we can get an actual machine and get it connected to the logic analyzer, it shouldn't take long to figure out how to initialize the chips. But until then, there isn't much that we can do. So the Naja is on the shelf currently, waiting that. I made an initial prototype of it. It has 2 chips that I just randomly got. I don't even know for sure if they're even from the S23, but it seems like they are. So I built that up with 2 of those chips, and it's hashing, but it's not hashing at the full hash rate. And I suspect that's because it's not being initialized correctly. So once Bitmain finally ships one of these, they famously canceled the air-cooled model, which was supposed to be released in January. And now they seem to be only releasing the hydro models, which are 3-phase power. And those are supposed to come out, I think, next month, but we'll see. Makes it tough for reverse engineering because I don't have 3-phase power here at my lab. So even plugging this in and running it is going to be more difficult. But we'll figure out how to get it done.
Yeah. Good thing I do have 3-phase power.
You've got 3-phase power?
Yeah, of course I do.
Wait, really?
Yes. It's not uncommon.
Like at your house?
Yes, in my house. It's not uncommon over here. Yeah,
All right, well, there we
use
go.
3-phase for my oven. Yeah, that's correct. But I also do have 3-phase in my carport out there. And I already made a future order of the S23. So as soon as the first batch gets shipped, hopefully I get one.
There we go. Then, and hopefully we can plug that sucker in and get a look at how they're configuring the registers and the chips.
Yeah, I
Well,
still
actually,
need
also we can
to.
see which chips are in it. That would be nice to see too.
Yeah, but first the initialization and afterwards the take apart. I mean, one thing that I need to make sure is I need to order myself one of the new versions of the edit board. Not the edit board, what is it, the edit board? The USB dongle?
Yeah, the edit board, right?
Yeah, I need to
That
get
will
one
allow
of
you
them.
to, yeah. I'll send you
And
one of those. I got some of them.
yeah, I need one of them, and I need to order another end sniffer. But currently, JLC PCB is in some Chinese New Year holidays, so they're not shipping anything.
Yeah, yeah. Actually, it might be easier for you to. You can just order fully built edit boards from JLC PCB. That might be the easiest,
Yeah,
or
that's
Ben
what I'm
can make
planning
them
of
for you.
doing.
Yeah, and the ant sniffer is really easy. You can just order those blank PCBs and solder it together. It's just soldering the 2 connectors on there. But
Yeah,
yeah,
but
that's pretty exciting.
I needed a PCB. I had one, but I broke it while using with my S21, so I need a new one.
Oh, a new ant sniffer?
Yeah,
You broke it?
yeah, I broke it.
You're doing some like hardcore ant sniffing, huh?
No, not really, not really. But my connector was a little bit too tight into it, and I was wiggling around, and shwip the PCB was not withholding my strength because sitting in front of the computer is increasing my biceps muscles every single day. So yeah, I broke it.
That's awesome. You just like He-Manned it and just shattered it with your intense strength. Let's go. That's
Yeah.
how it works here in open source Bitcoin mining, folks.
Developer, I go, yes, I need an end sniffer. I'm happy to pay for the shipping.
Yeah, I mean the ant sniffer created by our famous founder, Sir Vapes a lot, is an amazing tool. I love it. I use it all the time. I'm not quite as strong as you though, so I haven't just like crushed it with my biceps yet. Um, but Yeah, it's really easy to make. You just need to solder on those two connectors.
You want to hear one funny thing? I do have an S19J Pro board in my trash bin currently for a good reason. I received this board as a donation from a friend of mine who told me, well, yeah, it's not working. It shouldn't be that much. A couple of these caps are not really good and some of them are just exploded. So maybe you just need to replace them. Well, I just opened it up. I've taken a look on it and it's kind of ridiculous. I was just taking a picture of it and asking him what exactly has he done with it. And he told me he has done nothing with it, but he received it from a friend of his who apparently tried to reflow it with heat sinks attached to it. So every single component
Oh
underneath the
no.
heat sink was like on a completely different position. And to be
Oh
honest,
no.
I was surprised. I plugged that hashboard in. I'm super surprised that it didn't catch fire because like ASIC chips are off the plate. There are short circuits all over the place. So yeah, next time I try to test one of the hashboards that I do receive from friends of mine, I'll take it apart first before doing anything else.
Yeah, I highly recommend getting like working units unless you want to go down a rabbit hole, yak shaving and trying to get it to work first.
Well,
It's very
it
helpful when trying to reverse engineer to have that confidence that it works uh, before you dig into the very difficult process of reverse engineering.
definitely, definitely. So, before we dive deeper into anything else that is stupid, let's quickly take a step back and go into XOS related stuff. Because with 2.13.0, you probably have seen that the Bitaxe Gamma Duo is out, as well as the version 801, which are fully supported by the version 2.13 now. I want to quickly maybe give the word to you. I don't know if Ben want to come up on stage and talk about the Duo, but maybe you can explain or tell why the Duo exists. I mean, I did it in one of my latest videos about BitX, but would be nice if you can have one or two words about the Duo.
Yeah, sure. Unless Ben wants to come out, I can go into it. All right, he's probably busy. Yeah, so the Bitaxe Gamma Duo is got two chips on it, and so there was definitely some confusion where people were looking at the Gamma Turbo, the GT, and being like, "Wait, what's going on here?" Right? Because the GT also has two chips on it. In fact, both models, the Duo and the Gamma Turbo, have two BM1370s on it. So you're like, "Wait a second, what's going on?" Well, uh, hopefully, I can clear up some of this confusion. So the Gamma Turbo is designed to be is designed to be like a double Bitaxe Gamma, essentially. Like it has two chips on there. It's re-engineered. It has a much beefier voltage regulator. It should support overclocking. Um, you know, it's designed to be a beast. You should easily be able to get double the hash rate of a Gamma out of the Gamma Turbo, and that's what it was designed for. That's been out for a while now. Now that we have the Duo, there was kind of a strange series of events that happened that inspired the Duo, but some people were looking into the S21 XP. Now, the S21 XP was released after the S21 Pro. Both machines, both Antminers, have BM1370 chips in them. But the interesting thing is that the S21 XP has a lot more chips in it, and it ends up being much cheaper per chip. You know, if you're unsoldering the chips, it looks like a good deal. So that's why people were looking into it. But what it turned out was that the chips out of the BM1370 chips out of the S21 XP did not perform as well. It was really weird. The hash rate was much, much lower, or the efficiency was worse. And what became clear after a bunch of screwing around with it was that these BM1370 chips in the S21 XP just don't perform as well. They're just lesser performing chips. They don't have the hash rate. Bitmain is underclocking them. And so that's why they have to put more chips in the XP, is to to get that same hash rate, even though they're underclocking them. And we obviously don't get any documentation about how these Antminers work, but it really seems like Bitmain is putting lesser performing chips into the S21XP. It really sucks because there's no way to really tell. Like they both say BM1370 on them, but these ones just are not as good BM1370s. So because of the availability of these lesser performing BM1370 chips, it was decided to make the Bitaxe Gamma Duo and put 2 chips on there. Everything else about the Duo is the same as the Gamma. It has the barrel connector, it has the single phase power supply, voltage regulator. So it has 2 chips on there to just try and get it up to the same hash rate as the Gamma, maybe a tiny little bit more. But, it is not designed to be a double Gamma like the GT is. It's designed to basically be a Gamma, but use these lesser performing chips. You might be able to get a little bit more hash rate out of it, but you certainly will not be able to get the same hash rate out of a Duo as you can get out of a GT, the Gamma Turbo. So that's where it falls into line. And the Duo is not designed to, massively overclock it like the Gamma. It has the same single phase voltage regulator, has the same barrel connector as the Gamma. So it, think of it as maybe like a Gamma Plus or something like that. Like it's just maybe a tiny bit better than the Gamma, but it's really designed to be the same as the Gamma as far as total hash rate and power. People got real carried away with the fact that it has 2 chips on there, so it must be at least as good as the GT. And no, unfortunately, it's not. It just uses basically cheaper, lesser performing chips in there. The hope is that this will give us more versatility in what chips that we can use to make, essentially Gamma level miners. And I think that that's exactly what will happen. I'm sure everyone's aware, but sourcing these chips, the BM1370s, is very difficult. You kind of have to take what you can get. That's what the Duo is to use these lesser performing chips that it seems like Bitmain is now shipping.
Developer Argo is asking in the chat which specific model number, model version has been used there. I think it's the is it the PB?
Well, from everything I've heard, unfortunately, there is no distinction. It does not seem like, and again, still trying to figure this out. If you have any insights, I'd love to know, but it does not seem like there's a specific suffix for these lesser performing chips.
Well, they just have BM1370 on it. No AA, no BC, nothing.
They do. They have a suffix. I believe they have a suffix on them, but we can't correlate the suffix to the lower performing chips.
Ben, send a picture, please.
And Ben, feel free to correct me if I'm wrong here, but I believe he's looked into this quite a bit and has not seen a way to identify these lower performing chips by the suffix.
I mean,
Sean says we have seen different performance on the same variant. Yeah, PA in our case. That maybe there's some bin number. Like the suffix is not the bin. Bin is a term that semiconductor manufacturers use to categorize the performance. Maybe there's some bin information. Again, it's really hard just looking at a chip to tell what the bin is. Yeah, so Ben says there doesn't seem to be a way to identify by the package alone, which, man, that sucks. It'd be really cool if it was like, oh yeah, it's always the PF. That's the worst performing chip, but unfortunately not. Same variant. Sometimes we call the suffix the variant. Same variant, different performance. It really blows. Blame Bitmain.
That's kind of weird. I mean,
yeah,
that is the unfortunate part about working with things that you don't have any documentation about. You need to FAFO around. And that's also one of the reasons why I and Clea, a good friend of mine, created the Bitwatch Nano as like a direct competitor into the GT, if you want to put it in that way. So I mean, Sean was asking about that in the chat, and I think I can just quickly give like 1 or 2 sentences about the Bitforge Nano and why this has been created. I mean,
Yes, please.
personally, in my opinion, the reason being was there that I think it's sometimes also nice for the people to be attracted by a system that is super easily to get in terms of usability. That's the reason why the UI also looks a little bit different and why there's not that much possibility for the people to play around with it. You have like different power modes that you can use on it, as well as yeah, just playing around in general with the UI. But the whole concept originated from a completely different story, because we had an aluminium case that we loved for a completely different product, which was like a tiny Bitcoin node. And we thought, well, why shouldn't we create a Bitcoin miner that could fit into that? Turned out we couldn't, because then the surface for the heatsink wouldn't be big enough, and then we couldn't dissipate the heat. So we increased it a little bit and worked together with Duncan to design a completely custom heatsink for it to basically cool all the parts that do need cooling, like the voltage regulator and the ASICs, obviously. And with that, we just kind of stick to the same form factor for the PCB, but adjusted it in such a way that it is utilizing a ton of things that are also on the BitX, and that's also the reason why the Bitforge is open source and everybody can produce it and just send it out there if they want to. And also, I wanted to have my own little playground where I can play a little bit around with software changes that I think are more experimental compared to what I want to ship on ESP Miner. Like, I am not really confident with putting out things that are in use by tens of thousands of people, or even, I don't know if there's already 100,000 people using BitXs. But with the Bitforge Nano, there was the option
I
for
think
me
so.
and Clear to just play around and try things out and prove, especially prove to ourselves that we can come up with a different design that we can utilize and expand in the future. Because we're already working on a bigger version with more hash rate, more chips, and we also probably will move away from the ESP32. And that's the reason why we created the Bitforge Nano.
I mean, this is how we win, right? It's like you see something, you want it to be different, and if it's not a good fit for ESP miner for whatever reason, like you can just do it, and that's exactly what has happened with the Bitforge Nano, and I think it's amazing for that, right? It's like,
I mean, one of the
you know,
crazy things
more
is,
options.
especially with Duncan, is like he is so crazy into making sure a product does look so beautiful as possible. I mean, he proved it multiple times with different cases and everything that he built or his custom heatsink. It's kind of fantastic that you get slowly into the understanding of, yeah, sure, Bitcoin mining is kind of nerdy. You either do have these big machines that do consume a lot of power, or you have like a BitX. And some people argue, well, I don't want to have a bare PCB on my table staring at me. I want to have it in a beautiful design, and that is just so easily doable. He just recently created a LED LED metal case for the Bitforge Nano with a miniature version of Satoshi sitting on the ESP, which is so fantastic. I'm not sure if you have seen the picture that he posted on X about that.
Yeah, I saw it. It's really cool. It looks sharp, man. I love it.
It does indeed. It does indeed. And that's the whole point about it. Like, people ask me, which I particularly find a little bit weird, is like, oh, am I now moving away from BitX? Why is that a Bitforge? No. The Bitforge is especially that. Like, we talk about this in the town hall. We talk about this on conferences, if we're on stage or anything else. Like, if you want to do things different, just do it. Yet, apart from the ESP miner project, which has been led by PMax, shout out to you, man. You're doing a crazy, fantastic job out there. There's no much difference or no other option. So, of course, I had all of the things that I just told you earlier that led to into the creation of my own miner, but I also had the urge to prove to the people it is doable. Yes, in our particular case, developing the Bitforge Nano took over a year for numerous reasons, like moving, having a new job, like working a 9 to 5 and then spending time with wifey and kid and making sure that you don't spend too much time in your office because then wifey gets upset. Those things,
I know how that works.
as well as other things, like everything is robbing you time. But in the end of the day, if you stay consistent and if you have a vision of what you want to create, you can do it. So nobody did it. So I just got out there and told the people, well, here it is. That's how easy it is to create a fork. That's how easy it is to create a derivative or something that's different. And yes, I am maintaining the Forge OS and it gets updates. I just take a little bit time there, and the pace for that is also slower because, as I said, some of the things that I will add into Forge OS are a little bit more experimental. But in the end of the day, I do think they will turn out to be great. And that's the reason why I will put them into Forge OS and not ESP Miner. It's like two different worlds that I now need to play. And ESP Miner has restrictive rules. And as long as I do have the option and the possibility to have staying in ESP Miner, we will keep to them and we will stick to them.
Yeah, and I mean, like has happened with NerdQX, right? There's developments coming from both sides, and it's not like we're these just fierce competitors who don't share with anything, right? It's open source, and I think that there have been numerous benefits developed from both sides that have made their way back into the other project, and it's all for the better. So, I don't see it as this like, you know, like it's taking time away from ESP Miner or it's in competition with, right? It's like both projects are going to make each other better.
Exactly. I mean, we've seen it numerous times, and I pointed it out also numerous times that PMax was implementing some things and I was copying it over, or we implemented something at ESP Miner and he was using it, adjusted it to his needs. So it's complementary, and that's just fantastic. And for example, Badger is asking currently in the chat, does ESP Miner currently have any way of automatically regulating the voltage and megahertz of the chip to stick to a target? No, there is not. But there were plans, there were even PRs. One auto-tune PR has been closed recently, sadly, by the author because he thought we have lost interest. We clearly stated that we haven't lost the interest. Maybe he will reopen it, but yeah, yeah. If any future PR, for example, will get opened again to this particular topic, and I bet there will be for the auto tuning in the future a new PR, I'll make sure that the original dude gets credited for his work.
Yeah,
I mean,
that's awesome.
some way you need to make sure that you do credit the people that you work with. Otherwise, everybody just gets mad.
Yeah, that I think that's really important, right? Is if someone, worked on this and put a lot of effort into it, like, they need to be listed as a contributor. That's how this works. And I don't think there have been any attempts to like, you know, not credit people, right? You know, we've had a lot of awesome contributions from a lot of people. A lot of them have gotten merged. A- some of them haven't gotten merged, right? But that it is very important to credit the people that do this when it finally gets merged. There's a lot of work that goes into merging, and especially if it's a really complicated PR. Um,
I mean, we
it
even
gets
do have.
difficult to.
Sorry for interrupting. I just wanted to say we even do have PRs still open from 2024. Not because we don't want to implement them, but we want to have them open to get reminded about the issue or the problem that it's trying to solve.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, merging this stuff and getting it tested is, even if even if the maintainers want to do it, it's still a lot of work. And the person who submitted the PR can obviously do a lot of legwork to make it a more suitable PR for merging, right? And seeing that whole process through. I'm not saying that the auto tuning PR author didn't do this, but it just takes a lot of work. And again, no one works for
Especially
anyone.
reviewing the
So
code.
um, yeah,
I mean, I'm
no
just
doubt
taking
that
a
is
look
like a
currently
ton
on.
of work.
I'm just taking currently a look on the PR from Marsmensch, who is implementing different languages in XOS as well, like German and Spanish. And just his PR alone is 4,239 lines of changed code. That takes some time
Oh
to
my gosh!
review.
Wow!
Yes, that takes some time. So
Wow!
don't feel
Yeah,
discouraged if it just takes us a little bit of time to review your code. Don't get discouraged by that. It takes time, and I mean, I'm working from 5 a.m. to 5 p.m. Afterwards, I need to spend time with my family. And if Mutatrum is not reviewing or other people are not reviewing, then well, it takes a little bit of time to finding time. And sometimes you even need to take care about yourself. So, for example, yesterday I was playing a little bit World of Warcraft because I felt so, and today I'll probably do again because I just want to do that.
yeah. I mean, developer burnout, contributor, maintainer burnout is real. Like, don't get yourself burned out, right? That is really not going to be helpful for the project or helpful for advancing open source Bitcoin mining if people like you get burnt out. So certainly there is no shame whatsoever in you know, waiting till tomorrow to do it.
All right. I think we're getting here to an end and we're already sitting in 1 hour and 16. I do thank everybody who is still sitting in the audience and is just poking by. And I really enjoyed today's session. It was a good talk. I do hope some of you have got some inspiration or some topics that you're now thinking sleeplessly or under the shower that you want to solve and PR to any of the projects that you do love. One last thing that I probably will, or that I'm willing to give out to think a little bit about is I am personally really, really, really unhappy with GitHub. And I think at some point we talked about this over a year ago already, but at some point we need to reconsider the discussion and have a new discussion if we should move away from GitHub. Because Microsoft is ass. Fuck you, Microsoft. And just in plain text, the recent changes they did to GitHub with all of these AI shit features they implemented is just so fucking annoying. And I need to be clear here that you do hear me, Microsoft. You're fucking stupid with this bullshit. Like half of the actions were failing, lots of other features were failing. And it's just not reasonable these days to use that if we do have better options. So maybe you want to have a thought about that as well.
I have felt very nervous for a long time about being so dependent on one centralized service, especially one controlled by Microsoft. They have a track record. I I absolutely think we should look into other options. To be honest, I'm not very familiar with what those options are, but I'm happy to try it out. You know, it'd be interesting to see if we can kind of phase GitHub out and into something else. You know, maybe some projects get moved over to another platform, whatever that might be, to test it out, so we can kind of move slowly and test. But yeah, I mean, being dependent on a centralized service like that is just not going to end well. Because right, what happens when Microsoft has to implement some stupid KYC feature like Discord did, right? Then it's really gonna suck, and we have no recourse, right? We can't walk that back. I don't think any of the developers here are going to want to submit to KYC features to use a code, repository. So
Yeah, well,
that's messed up.
I don't want to put that into discussion today. I just wanted to mention that probably we will talk about this in the next town hall a little bit deeper because I feel the urge. We are more or less in a good position. We want to move away from Discord. why not move away from GitHub as well? And I do see HexFox shouting out at ForgeJoe. ForgeJoe is brilliant. I also love GitLab. All of them have caveats and disadvantages. But yeah, I think we just keep that in mind and maybe talk about this the next time. The last question that we do have in the chat is from Matt, is asking if there's any Noster style relay protocol that we could use. Yeah, there is a Git for Noster or on Noster, but it's really buggy and it lacks the features that we do need. So it's not possible to use that currently. Unless we do have any further questions, I'd say I give the word over to you, Scott. And yeah, I thank everybody for tuning in here. And I already say goodbye from my side. Scott, it's your stage.
I just wanted to real quick. I was working a lot last week on the BitCrane and got the BitCrane mining on a S19J Pro from Mujina. It's pretty exciting. We have a channel on OSMU for the BitCrane and the Addit board and related projects. But check it out. I post about it on Twitter too. It's really exciting to be able to control an Antminer from open source firmware like Mujina. I think the Mujina project, for those who don't know, it's a Linux-based open source miner app. I think it's very new, but it shows a ton of potential, a ton of potential. So I'd really encourage people who are interested in this, like mining firmware for larger miners, to check out the Mujina project, get involved. You can go to mujina.org. That has links to all the various GitHub repositories. It's really cool. I do admit to making a bunch of AI slop code, but I pointed Claude at Mujina, and I had implemented support for the S19J Pro over BitCrane in less than a day. I don't think my code is mergeable at this point. There's some work that needs to go to merge that back into Mujina, but the potential here is just crazy. So I'd like to see more people get involved in that. Hit me up if you got questions about it. Yeah, and with that, that's all I got for now. Give the shout out to all the people that are joining us here on Discord in one of the final probably Discord town halls. Thank you all for joining us live. We got Animal, good to see you again. Pual91, definitely mispronouncing your name, but you get some huge respect for having a rad custom miner that you made as your avatar icon there. Thanks for joining us. We got ComX10 and we have Matt from Solo Satoshi. You guys are badasses. Thank you for joining us. Always love having you here. Keep up the good work. Did I see Kells in here earlier? Maybe I didn't. Shout out to the whole Solo Satoshi team. You guys are awesome. Decentralized Mine. Good to see you, buddy. We're always going back and forth with nonsense on Twitter, but you are such a cool, example of people who just want to get into this and just jump in and start doing it. And now look at all the crazy cool stuff you're making. So good once again to see you here. McPie, shout out to you, buddy. Atlas Pool is rad. I love seeing the, sort of the details and all the fun stuff that comes along with like really knowing what you're talking about for network infrastructure and getting a very worldwide performant solo mining pool set up. Check out Atlas Pool. I believe it's .io. If you haven't already, that's cool stuff. E. Anderson, man, I haven't seen you in a while. It's good to see you back here. For those who don't know, E. Anderson is a legend. He put in a ton of work for getting ESP miner set up, for getting the whole build system set up. Really like brought us out of the like early days of ESP miner and made this a real project, as well as lots of bug fixes and contributions. We got Ben. Good to see you, man. Everyone knows Ben is an absolute legend. He's working on some fantastic stuff. We got some cool projects coming up. Public Pool is just crushing it. Shout out to I think it was last week or maybe it was earlier this week. I can't even remember now, but another Another block solo mine with self-hosted public pool. That's so cool to see. Love it. Um, Sean and Tommy G from IX Tech. I love that you guys always join us. You're always working on fantastic stuff. I think I'm slowly training the Twitter algorithm to show me more of what you're doing, and I love it. This is the kind of content I want to see when I log into Twitter every single time. So for those who don't know, check out IX Tech. They're a Bitaxe and open source miner manufacturer and seller, and working on some cool stuff. Got the Nerd Q, which looks pretty dope. I would love to get my hands on one of those to try it out. But yeah, cool stuff coming out of there. Thanks for joining us, Developer Algo. Man, dude is an OG here at OSMU, so it's good to see you involved. Hopefully you can get a ant sniffer over to WantClue so that we can figure out this S23 madness as soon as we have the machines to do it. I think that would make a good new Bitaxe for sure, with those new 9.5 joules per terahash chips. Pretty exciting. We have the legendary PMax, the creator, the instigator of the Nerd QAxe, well, and various other projects beyond the Nerd QAxe. But this guy makes some rad stuff. He is the like shining example of you can just do things. If you want to, you can just do things. You can just do what you want. And PMax is making that happen in progress or in practice, which love to see. Hexfox, thanks for joining us. Keep up the good work. Thanks for joining us. And yeah, thanks to everyone for joining us. As always, the town hall is always a blast. It's good to chat with you all, and keep pushing this open source mining thing together. We're the Open Source Miners United, and we already have come up with some just mind-blowingly cool stuff, and I think the future is very bright. What's coming out of this group is just phenomenal. So can't stop, won't stop. Let's fucking go. And yeah, with that, thank you very much.